I want to go ahead and I want to move on to the main portion of my stream, the main part of my stream, and that is my top 10 best TV shows of 2022. Now, 2022 was an excellent year for TV. I mean, I would say like the last 20 years of television has been excellent, chat. You know, like The Sopranos changed so much. It proliferated into all these fantastic genre shows and dramas and things. I mean, some of the best, storytelling I think is on TV nowadays, chat. It's just not exclusively at the movies. Like TV, they've been able to do so many things that maybe even we don't often see in films anymore. That's where a lot of the series storytelling, which I think is great, which I think is really, really cool. And so there were so many shows this year, and I watched some great content with you guys as well, with just these watch parties. And there's some things that I haven't been able to get to yet. Like, I know Severance. Everyone's saying you got to check out Severance. I haven't seen Severance. I can't even give it a shout out because I haven't even watched it. But there were a couple of shows this year that I thought they were great, but I didn't have any room for my top 10, or I've only seen like a few episodes, but I still want to give them a shout out, chat. So before we go ahead and get into the top 10 best TV shows of 2022, I wanted to start off with my honorable mentions, chat. And the first one, I'm so glad this is the first one I have from honorable mentions, because it's a show that I'm glad is getting a lot of attention, because I was actually worried that, I don't think the show's getting a lot of attention. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. But apparently, it's the complete opposite. A lot of people are loving the show, already got renewed for a second season. But that is The Bear. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with this show, chat. It follows this brilliant young Michelin star chef who is forced to come home and operate his family's restaurant due to his brother harming himself. And, he has to basically return to this world he never wanted to return to. And he's dealing with all these very different personalities trying to run this restaurant, which really isn't all that great. Everyone has their ways of doing certain things. And what I love about this show, I really related to the protagonist, the main character of Carmen Berzatto. Who is this amazing chef, and he has these expectations, but now he's caught in a situation he didn't really want to be caught in, and he's dealing with just everything, all the sadness he has inside of him, and just the stress and the anxiety of trying to run this restaurant the best he possibly can, and dealing with like his brother's his dead brother's best friend, who's like a complete idiot. I think it's a really good show. I've only seen about 4 episodes. I've seen half the series so far, and I've been really, really impressed. I think it's like 8 episodes. I think they're all between like 30 minutes to like 45 minutes or so. It is fantastic, Chad. For those who don't know, this is on FX. FX has produced like so many amazing shows over the years. Like the last 20 or so years, 15 years. And this is one of them, chat. This is getting a second season. It's very much a dramedy. There are hilarious moments. There are very dark moments, chat, in this show. But it's the cast, and it's that main character, that actor. Let me give him a shout out, chat, who plays Carmy in the series, because I don't know if I've ever seen him anything else before, but he is so good. Jeremy Allen White. He does such a great job. Like, he has like this monologue in this. There's a lot of monologues in this series, but he has this monologue where he's just talking about, I just want to find consistency. I would just like consistency. I'm like, oh my God, I so identify with this character. It feels very real, especially when you're trying to pursue your passion and all these roadblocks are in place, or, certain things just happen, or there are people that make it more difficult, and he's just trying his best to deal with it, but you can tell that it is just weighing on him. I loved his performance, Chad. He was fantastic. See, Shameless. I never watched Shameless. Another show I never watched. So he was in Shameless, which I've always heard great things about. That's one of those things on my list that one day I have to check out. But no, he's fantastic in the series, chat. And it's getting a second season. It's not like a one and done, so they're getting off. It's getting a shit ton of award attention. And from what I have seen, it absolutely deserves it. But I haven't finished the show, so I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to give it an honorable mention, Chad, at the very, very top. Another honorable mention that I have, Chad, it's funny. It's a show that initially I was kind of like really lukewarm on because I've only saw like the first 2 episodes. I thought the first episode was just like okay, and then the second one I thought was better, was definitely better, but very similar to the first one. But chat, later on, by episode 3, I was hooked to this show. And that was Guillermo del Toro's The Cabinet of Curiosities, where this is in a horror anthology series, similar to something like, the Twilight Zone, chat, And you follow all these different characters through all these different walks of life, dealing with something that is supernatural, something that is fantastical, something that is monstrous. A lot of monsters in this show, and it's hosted by Guillermo del Toro, kind of like Rod Serling fashion. I have to say, Alfred Hitchcock's Presents, very similar. Like a lot of those kind of like horror anthology shows, Creep Show, things like that, throughout the multiple decades. And I have to say, like, by episode 3 was the big turning point for me. I wish I'd watched episode 3 before I kind of initially reviewed this on Double Toasted, because I was like, it's fine, whatever. But by episode 3, which is called The Autopsy, that one was absolutely fantastic, Chad. I love that episode and how that played out and this greater mystery. And I don't even want to say what it is, but it has F. Murray Abraham and a lot of recognizable actors in all these episodes too. F. Murray Abraham in episode 3. You have the season finale, Chad, which is probably my second favorite episode, which is The Murmurs, which is this, it's great, where you follow this couple in the 1950s who are these people that study birds, and they recently had a death within their family. Their young daughter died, and they go to this house where apparently a young mother and her son also died, and the wife, she's experiencing these supernatural events while also, her marriage is falling apart and her and her husband are overcome by grief. Really good episode. It's the one that really doesn't have like a monster in it. And I'm usually not a big fan of like supernatural ghost stuff, but like how that was handled and the acting on full display was very impressive. But They bring all these different directors, all these different tones. They have things that are more sci-fi, some which are more comedic, bringing in actors like, Rupert Grint, who really like stretches himself. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. By episode 3, I'll tell you this. If you were kind of lukewarm, episode 1 and episode 2, I think is much more fun. We're dealing with rats, just rats and nightmare creatures. By episode 3 of F. Murray Abraham, that's the one I feel would be a turning point for a lot of people. This show is also very bloody. It is very gory at times. Some of them, not all the episodes, but the first couple are pretty gory, especially the third. It's like, Jesus Christ. And if you have problems with like watching people self-harm in this series, there's a lot of that too. So it is pretty disturbing, but I ended up really, really enjoying Guillermo del Toro's The Cabinet of Curiosities. And moving on from that, another show which, I didn't love like a lot of people did, but I still really respected it. And it's funny because it brought renewed interest to the property in the game that it is based on. That is Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Chat, which again, continuing on with Netflix's success when it comes to doing animated adaptations of video games, Chat. We saw that with obviously Castlevania and Arcane and obviously Cuphead. And now we see it again here with Cyberpunk. And I really like this. I thought it was very fun. Where we followed this character named David Martinez, who tragedy happens with his family. He becomes a edge runner within this world of Night City, this neo noir cyberpunk city, and becomes a criminal. And within this world, oftentimes criminals and people in positions of power, they augment their bodies, Chad, either with software or hardware. And, he falls in with this, like, a group of mercenaries. And, things happen throughout the entire series. There's conspiracies, there's evil plots, Chat, and they have to save themselves. And I watched all 10 episodes, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Not everything worked for me. I feel like some stuff was underwritten. Some of the voice acting. I watched the dub version, the English dub, and there were like some voice actors. I'm just like, I don't know if this is really working for me. Like, Giancarlo Esposito, who is in everything, and he's very talented, as we all know, Chase, and some of my other things I'm going to be bringing up later on. But like, he does a dub for a character, and like the way in which he's reading the lines, it's very awkward. And I noticed that for a number of the characters. It wasn't for everybody, of course, but some just like, yeah, it just wasn't working for me. And then, if I listen to the sub, which I'm not against subs, I'm fine with subs, and I'm fine reading subtitles. But it is that kind of thing where they yell out their lines and they're like, "Who's around?" It was like, Jesus Christ. It reminded me of like the sub for like Attack on Titan, and they could be talking about, like, my mother died, but the way in which they say it's like, "My mother died." I'm like, Jesus. Okay. So anime acting, if you will. Which sometimes can be very subtle. Here, this is anything but subtle. It is very violent, very gory, so that may not be your thing, and it is very over-exaggerated. It does have these kind of quiet, wholesome moments that work really well for me. But yeah, it has a few actors who I just feel like they're not reading the character very well. And that I don't know, that just kind of comes across to me, and that's why it wasn't one of my favorite shows. But still, a lot about this works, and it brought renewed interest to the Cyberpunk video game. I think when the show came out, like within the first week that it came out, like Cyberpunk 2077, which we obviously Chad had a very infamous launch, had a ton of bugs, disappointed a number of people. Disappointed me. I had fun with it, but it was not the end all RPG that CD Projekt Red was marketing it as, right? But I think when the anime came out, that was Cyberpunk 2077. That was the highest. It was played by the most people at that point since it originally launched. So people, people are still interested in this property, and it definitely create a lot of goodwill towards the game, which I have heard has improved. A lot of quality of life improvements, chat. So we're checking out the anime. And what's also great about this, this type of video game adaptation, you don't need to play the game to watch it, which is great. It's the same thing for like Arcane, the same thing for Castlevania. This is very much the same game, and for Cuphead, this is the same case where you could have zero knowledge of the game going into this anime, and you would probably most likely be really satisfied. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then, Chad, another one. This is another one of my honorable mentions, and this one was introduced to me by Vanispheres in the chat, and that is Murderville. I was completely unaware of this series, chat, but it focuses on this character. It's basically a police procedural. It's a police procedural, chat, where the majority of the cast all is reading from from scripts. They know what the story is going to be, and it's led by Will Arnett. The only big thing is, and it plays out like a police procedural, but the only kind of like big thing in the show that kind of sets it apart from like other police procedurals is that every time they bring in a guest star, they have no script to work from. And so they're all improving through the entire episode. And they have like multiple like guest stars, Conan O'Brien, Marshawn Lynch, who was one of the best ones in this, Sharon Stone, Kumail Nanjiani. They recently just did a Christmas special earlier in December, chat, where they had like Maya Rudolph and Jason Bateman and some other people I don't even want to say. He was like, oh shit, I didn't know that they would be in here. This was really, really funny. And improv comedy, it can always be hit and miss. Comedies in general are very hit and miss. But this one really worked for me. I mean, listen, there's going to be some episodes where it'd be like, yeah, this guest star isn't as funny as the last one. It's funny, Ken Jeong was like one of those guys like, oh, I expected him to be funny, but he was like one of the lamest ones, because some of them, like, some of the guest stars, they're like, okay, they get into it and they contribute a lot. And then like other ones just are like just giggling and laughing throughout of it. I'm just like, okay, well, they're having fun, but that's not as fun for the viewer if you're just giggling and laughing at every goddamn scene. So you're like the regular actors had to carry it, but it was a pretty fun show. And I really like Will Arnett as an actor, both a dramatic actor and as a comedian. And he's great as this over the top, just very sad and pathetic detective. Really, really loved the show. And the supporting cast did a good job too. And then the last of my honorable mentions for this year is Reacher, chat, which I feel like is a show a lot of people forgot. It's on Amazon. I think it came out like really early on, like last year. I think it was like maybe January or February around that time. But Reacher follows the character of Jack Reacher, who is arrested for murder, which he allegedly did not commit. And the police enlist his help to track down the killer or killers and unravel this conspiracy. And these are obviously based off the books of Lee Child, which I have read some of these books. And, they're fun, action, police procedural, spy novels, Chad. They've always been very fun. There have been adaptations in the past with, like, Tom Cruise, which I think I've seen both of them, and neither are really very good. They're okay at best. And, Tom Cruise, like, even though, he's obviously been having a career renaissance and, he's started a lot of great action films, he's just not the character of Reacher. Like, in the books, like, Reacher, he is this, like, 6'5", just hulking man, but he's not, like, dumb or anything like that. He's not a brute. He's very intelligent. He's very sensitive, and he's very personable. And they have this the actor who plays him. I think. Oh God, what's his name? Alex. Let me look it up really quick. He's a one-man army. He's a one-man army. Yes. Let me look up the actor's name because I want to give this guy credit. He's been other things before. Alan Richardson. Thank you, Alan Richardson. He's perfectly cast as the character. He does such a great job. He's just likable. He's just so personable. Like, there's so many just like little scenes that really just make you go like, God, yeah, hell yeah, man. You chase down those bad guys. He really, really works well. Like, there's even this like one scene in the series where he sees like a dog that's being abused, and he's like, fuck that. And he uses his physique to intimidate the dog owners, I'll just say. It just wins your heart, yeah. But yeah, Alan Richardson, who I want to see in more things, shit. He's like kind of like one of my big picks. If they ever do they're doing Fantastic Four. He'd be my like pick for Ben Grimm, the Thing, for that movie. But yeah, he does a great job. And it's an easy watch too. It's not too many episodes. I think it's like 8 or 10 episodes, chat, but it's great. It's a really solid, grounded, gritty thriller with a really likable main character and a pretty solid supporting cast too. And so, yeah, I want to give that one a shout out. But that is the last of my honorable mentions, chat. And I want to go ahead and finally move on to my top 10 best TV shows of 2022. And again, this has been a fantastic year for TV. Even with these honorable mentions, I was struggling like, man, should I include these on my top 10? But I did not. But they're still great. You should check them out. But, chap, my number 10 is The Sandman, which, for those who don't know, Neil Gaiman's The Sandman. It's this fantasy drama comic book that originally came out, I think, in the late 80s, like 88, 89, and it ran into like the mid or late 90s. And you follow this this character of Dream or Morpheus or the Sandman, is man of many names, where he comes from this realm and where he basically creates dreams for people. And he's a representative of all of these other very powerful entities. Some of his brothers and sisters include like death and destiny and things. Within the show, he is captured by this kind of amateur wizard who ends up imprisoning him for over a century, and he loses a lot of his powers, a lot of his abilities, a lot of his artifacts. And the first part of the show is him trying to retrieve these from a variety of people, but also trying to wrangle the various dreams and nightmares that he's created that infect people's different dreams. As an all-star cast, Chad. Obviously, Tom Sturridge, who plays Dream, does such a great job. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a young Alan Rickman, a very young Alan Rickman. But you got a Boyd Holbrook in the show, chat. You have Gwendolyn Christie, who plays Lucifer Morningstar. You deal with like all these different dimensions and beings, like for people from hell. It's a really good show. Like, the best episode is, and it's so just heartfelt and wholesome, and even though it's like, oh, it's about death, like that's where we finally meet like Death's sister, Dream's sister, Death. And it's a brilliant episode that also then feeds into another part of it where we encountered this guy who made a deal with death, where it's like, all right, he's like, I don't want to die. I never want to die. I want to keep living on for the rest of my life. And Death, who was like, okay, I can do that for you. And you just come back to this bar every 100 years. And if you're, if you want to die, then I'll take it away from you. And he's like, okay. But this guy just keeps on fucking living, despite how terrible his circumstances can absolutely get. He's like, I know, I still want to keep living. I don't like the alternative. Like, it explores that. And they have things that are more episodic and things which has a more of a mainline, through line story. And it was very, very good. You have David Thewlis in the series, who plays the character, and who is a DC character, Dr. Destiny, who has one of the creepiest episodes in it, where it's a bottle episode in this bar where he has one of the artifacts of Dream, and he's using it to manipulate all these people to create his ideal world. It was a great show, and this was they were trying to adapt this for decades, chat. And Neil Gaiman never agreed to any of those adaptations because they wanted to change so much. But this is probably pretty much the closest they ever. I mean, it very much accurately represents the comic. And it's an adaptation of the original. I think it's like the first 2 volumes, maybe 2.5 or something like that. But they do a great job. It's getting a second season. I was thinking like, oh, this is going to be too esoteric. I don't think it's going to do very well. But I'm glad it's getting a second season at least, Chad. It's very good. And I have to admit, it does wrap up pretty well. Nice little tight bow, even if this was a one and done. But they do a great job. I never would have thought that you'd be able to adapt this, well enough. But they did it. And it was, as a TV show, that was the best move. That was a smart move. So yes, chat. Number 10 is The Sandman. Netflix is The Sandman. At number 9, I have Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal, chat. Season 2 came out this past year. For those who don't know, Primal takes place in this fantastical Neolithic prehistoric world where dinosaurs, humans, Neanderthals, kind of Iron Age civilizations all exist together. There's witchcraft, there's magic, there's sorcery, there's all sorts of monsters and kaiju and things in this world. And you follow these, primarily these 2 characters. One is this Neanderthal named Spear, and we follow this Tyrannosaurus Rex-esque dinosaur named Fane. They both suffer from similar tragedies, and they form this duo, this kind of tight-knit family, and they go off on all these adventures trying to survive in this world in like the first season. And at the end of that first season, they encounter, and the thing is, like, there's no dialogue pretty much for the first season of the series. It's just a lot of yelling and a lot of roaring, if you will. But by the end of the first season, they encountered this Homo sapien. This woman named Mira, and she comes from another land in which she is a slave, and certain events play out in that episode that leads her to getting captured, and Spear and Fane go to this land, leaving their kind of more primeval land and going to this one which is occupied by these like Iron Age or Bronze Age civilizations. And it is fantastic. It shows Genndy Tartakovsky is a master of using very little dialogue to tell a story, and this is a perfect example of this. It's heartfelt, it's wholesome, it's savage, it's gory, it's grisly. The animation and the choreography in this series is astounding. It's some of the best 2D choreography you probably can see this year on television. It's perfect. It's perfect. Now, the show, at least, season 2 kind of wraps things up. I guess there's a thing that they could have it where they can continue on with a story, but I don't know. I'm not, if they want to end it here, they can, but we'll see in the future if they're going to actually do a season 3. But season 1 and season 2 is just, it's a perfect 2D animated series, Shah. And it just makes me really appreciate someone like Genndy Tartakovsky and all his various animators and storytellers that work with him. They do such a great job. Oh yeah, and they have a whole episode where they do use dialogue, where it's very different. It's probably very controversial, where they don't even focus on Spear and Fane. And it's one where it's kind of like, it brings up a lot of questions. But we have like a Charles Darwin. and he's talking with all these other like socialites and philosophers and professors about the idea of primal theory, like that primal nature always exists within us and it's only brought out due to certain situations. And in that episode, we see it where it's brought out in them for a variety of reasons due to this inciting incident. It's really cool. It's a far departure from the main show, and I can see why they were like, let's see how this works. But I really liked it. It's great, Chet. It's great. If you're a fan of Genndy Tartakovsky's Samurai Jack, or his 2D Clone Wars series, or hell, even like Dexter's Laboratory and stuff, you'll really like Primal. This is basically Adult Swim saying like, hey, Genndy, do whatever you want. And that's what he does with this show. And he does a great job. Speaking of animation, chat, number 8 on my list of top 10 of the best TV shows of 2022 is The Legend of Vox Machina, chat. And, initially I was kind of like lukewarm on this show when it first started. Very impressed by the animation, but I was kind of like hit and miss with the writing, some of the comedy. But for those who don't know, this is an animated fantasy series. It is an adaptation of the D&D Critical Role campaigns, which are, recorded and streamed live for various viewers. It's very popular Dungeons and Dragons team of people who play these games. Has a huge cast like Laura Bailey and Ashley Johnson, Matthew Mercer, Sam Riegel, Travis Willingham, a lot of very talented people who reprise the roles from doing their D&D campaigns, for the show itself. And I was by the midpoint and then onward, I was very impressed with this show. And they have like a ton of great voice actors as well, where you follow, your prototypical, team of adventurers, where you have your gnome bard, you have your barbarian-esque character, you have your rogues, your archer, you have someone who uses kind of like steampunk-esque technology, you have your paladin, and you have like your healer and things, and they go on this journey to defeat initially trying to investigate these dragon attacks, and that leads them into investigating this powerful family who controls this city called Whitestone, and they're using necromancy, and one of them is a vampire, chat, and it really focuses on this one character named Percival, who's originally resided there with his family when they were deposed by this necromancer and this vampire. They're called the Briarwoods. And, he has his own personal issues and, his own motivations to go back to that city and to liberate it. While also going through a lot of changes. It is a great animated show. Again, what's so cool about it is you don't need to know anything about Critical Role to watch. You don't really need to know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, but at the same time, it is very reverent and respectful of Dungeons and Dragons, and just helps it proliferate and show like, hey, anyone could check out Dungeons and Dragons. So it's very positive in that way. And I was very, very impressed with this. They do a great job. Season 2 is coming out in a couple weeks, chat. And so they're knocking these out very, very quickly. But I was very impressed. The voice cast all does a great job. The humor works really well. And even if like some characters initially like you don't warm up to them, like there's this character named Scanlan who is this gnome bard. I'm just like, he's just so one note. All he is he's just making sex jokes and shit. I'm just like, come on, that's just crassness for the sake of crassness. There's an episode with him in this series at the midway point where it's just Scanlan goes commando. And in more ways than one. And I was like, wow, that was pretty goddamn good. It really kind of changed my whole view on the show after that and that particular character. And going forward, I really enjoyed it. And I watched it a second time doing audio video commentaries, and I liked it even more. I initially watched it a high part of it, and that also was pretty goddamn cool. Love that. Love that. Yeah, Scanlan is adorable. Little lecherous gnome. Moving on. From animation, chat, at number 8. And funny enough, it's another thing that involves Dungeons and Dragons, or at least references it, and that is Stranger Things Season 4. I've been a big fan of Stranger Things for quite some time, chat. Love Season 1, Season 2. Season 3, I like Season 3. But it definitely felt like the series was kind of spinning its wheels. I didn't really care for what they were doing with some characters. And I feel like season 4, for the most part, makes some major improvements, chat. Where we have all our characters are huge, which is a huge cast at this point. They're all going off in their own little side stories and then finally meeting up at the end, if you will. But what really works for me in this show is the fact that, and it's crazy because, I'm not inherently against retconning. It can be lazy. Now, the only thing is, if you retcon something, you got to make it just really good. You got to go like, oh shit, like this really does improve the show overall. And I feel like with their big retcon this, where they finally did create like a big bad. It's not obviously we had villains in all the past seasons, like the Demogorgon, the government, of course. We had, the Mind Flayer. We had the Mind Flayer's meat monster puppet thingy. But now we get revealed like this actual villain, Vecna, who's been controlling it all this entire time. I really, really like that. I love that. There's like setting up this ultimate threat that they all eventually have to face in season 5. But I love what they do with a lot of these characters, Shed, all these different groups, and introduction of new people like Eddie, who was fantastic. Everyone fucking loves Eddie. So goddamn good. It's his year, Chad. It's his year. I really enjoyed that. I mean, the rest of the cast, like I think they do more of David Harbour this season. Like I didn't really like what they did with David Harbour in the previous season, but here he's alive, by the way, he's alive, which, at that point it's like, it's obvious you didn't kill him, you didn't show him die. But, the whole Russian subplot, like that really worked for me. I thought that was great. And then again, everything with Vecna, I thought worked really, really well. If I have any big criticisms of this season, is just like, you guys really don't know what to do with Will, with Will Breyer, because all he's doing in this season, he's crying. He's crying because Mike doesn't like him the way he wants to like him. He wants a boyfriend, chat. But Will was doing a lot of fucking crying, and his brother was smoking a lot of drugs. Smoking a lot of reef. He's got the bowl cut. He's got a bowl cut, chat. That's about it. And so I'm hoping that in the season 2 that they're going to do more with him, because they really do at this point, or just fucking kill him if you don't know what to do with him anymore. Because he was, he had like a big important role in season 1 and season 2, and then season 3 he was like, he just wanted to play D&D with his friends. That was his arc. And then season 4 he's just fucking sad. And I get it, Chad. I get it. I understand why he's sad, but you need to do more of that character. But for the most part, this series did more right than wrong. This season did more right than wrong, and that was very impressive. And I really, really enjoy the character of Vecna. This side, he was so creepy, and I like that he was, he was a schemer. He was a schemer, like all the other character, like the other bad guys in Stranger Things. I mean, the Mind Flayer obviously intelligent, no doubt about it. But I like that they really gave like the upside down of voice with Vecna. It's like, oh shit, it makes it more personal, Chad. And this character makes everything more personal. It's like it's all fucking connected from the very beginning. I liked it. It was an example of a really good retcon, very good retcon. So Stranger Things, my number 7, chat, for 2022. And then number 6, chat, completing my bottom 5, is Peacemaker. Now, as you guys know, I was a huge fan of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. It has the in it, chat, not Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad, the good one, chat. James Gunn did such a great job with that movie. Kind of, in a way, at least critically revitalized the DCU, if for a moment, chat. Giving us the Suicide Squad movie we should have gotten years ago, if that first one, which is terrible. It's one of the worst DC movies of all time, DC EU movies, one of the worst comic book films of all time. Just a fucking embarrassment. But here, James Gunn, he just understands. He does a really great job of making you care about characters you never cared about, or characters you never even heard of. He did that with Guardians of the Galaxy, and he did that with characters like Bloodshot and Polka Dot Man, and also Peacemaker, chat. I'm only the thing that bothers me is that movie didn't do well commercially because the pandemic and the same day and day release. It's too bad. The movie deserves a lot more love, and hopefully it'll continue to be looked upon very kindly into the future, which I think it has. But we also got introduced to the character of Peacemaker, played by John Cena in that movie, who's a real son of a bitch in that film, as this kind of douchebag, super jingoistic, wannabe Captain America-esque character. Where he's like, like his whole thing is, his mantra is like, I will do anything for peace. I will kill as many women and children to preserve it. It's like, wow, that's such a contradiction. And he does a lot of bad things. I mean, he's great. And John Cena, that is like his best role so far. He's always been, done very well when it comes to comedy. But here he stretched himself, and there's some great dramatic scenes, obviously, in that movie. And how that movie plays out kind of reveals him to be like a piece of shit. And then when they announced that they were going to do a Peacemaker series, I'm like, okay, but he's like such a scumbag. But then I forgot, Chad, James Gunn, he's great at making you care about characters you either didn't care about or you hate. And we see it takes place after the events of the Suicide Squad, where Peacemaker is being controlled and wrangled by Amanda Waller, and he has to go off on this other mission along with a huge cast of other characters. And it's a fantastic supporting cast, too, Chad. With Robert Patrick, who plays his super racist right-wing dad, who's pretty much like the leader of the Ku Klux Klan. Steve Agee's in it, who did like also the mocap for King Shark. Jennifer Holland's in it, who plays Harcourt. It's great. And they have to investigate this alien invasion. It's very nasty alien invasion. Who's the guy who also plays Vigilante? He did such a great job. At first it's like, you're kind of like Deadpool, but it's like, no, you're like just really disturbed and creepy and socially awkward. Every time he's on screen, you're transfixed to him, Chad. He's just fascinating to watch. But yeah, no, it's a great show. It's getting and made me they made me really care about a character who did so many horrible things in the Suicide Squad, or in the original movie he appeared in. And they're doing a season 2. This might be I mean, it's sad. It does suck, with the DCU rebooting, which is probably for the best. But the only thing that disappoints me is, it's like the Suicide Squad, the events of the Suicide Squad, and potentially Peacemaker season 1 and season 2 will not carry over to the new version of the DC Cinematic Universe. I'm like, God damn it. But hey, if they can go out with a bang, if they could, end that, and it can be almost its own little mini universe, and at least I'll appreciate that, chat. I would like that. But yeah, Peacemaker, what a surprise. What a great project for John Cena. And but that opening, chat, that one of the best openings, I think, to any TV show this year. Wonderful. So I think people were just watching that. People were just performing that everywhere. Loved it. And speaking of superhero content, chat, more genre stuff. Another superhero series. There's also a parody of superhero films and a bit of a satire, if you will. And that is The Boys, season 3. This show keeps getting better and better, in my opinion. Perfectly ratchets up the anxiety and the tension throughout, where this obviously takes place at the events of season 2, where Butcher's team has been disbanded. Everyone's kind of off doing their own thing. Their lives are either better or worse depending on who the person they are. Like Huey is working for Victoria Newman's Bureau of Superhero Affairs. Mother's Milk is dealing with being divorced from his wife. Frenchie and Kimiko, they're trying to strengthen their relationship and their romance. And Butcher is fucking mad. Butcher is mad and bitter and resentful. Although he does have his relationship with his, I guess you can say, stepson at this point, the son of his wife, which is not his biological son, because that is the biological son of Homelander, who is becoming increasingly more erratic and crazy over a very quick amount of time, chat. And we also get the introduction of Jensen Ackles' character of Soulja Boy, who possibly could be even worse than Homelander, depending on who you ask, chat. And all that is just mixed together in a blender, chat, and it is bloody and gory and filmed with perfectly crafted tension, penises, cocaine, and great acting. I know that I think they said they want to do 2 more seasons, season 4 and then season 5. I'm very excited for that, but I'm like, how are you gonna match up to this latest season? Like, the thing is, like, anytime you have like a good character, I mean, everyone's great in the show. Like, no one's giving a bad performance. Everyone's doing really good. Maybe some storylines are more interesting than others, of course, but like Anthony Starr as Homelander, every time he walks into a scene, you're just like, what is this guy gonna do? Just the tension, because he was like he's more unstable than ever, and I'm like, oh god, he's done some horrible things in this series, but you're just so transfixed to him. You're just so fascinated by this guy. But I love that. He's done such a good job. I wish he would get more attention, The people seem to always be ignoring his performance in The Boys, probably because of the biases against a lot of genre content, especially superhero content. But he delivers one of the best performances of the year on television, or just in general. He does such a great job. And moving on from The Boys, which is now it's my top 5, Jen, my top 5 of my top 10. But number 4, and this is crazy. I never would have thought this would even be in my top 10. I mean, I was looking forward to it, but I never would have thought this show would be as good as it was. But it was, chat, and that is Andor. In a year where we got a lot of disappointing Star Wars TV shows, The Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi, I was like, all right, Andor. I mean, can't say I'm excited, but I am interested. I'm curious. And, I was a fan, of course, of Rogue One, chat. Really enjoyed Rogue One. And Cassian Andor was one of my favorite characters in that movie. Him and K2SO, I think, are probably the two of the best, modern Star Wars characters that we've gotten in quite some time. But Tony Gilroy and his writers and his filmmakers produced, chat, what I consider to be one of the best pieces of live action Star Wars content ever. Probably. I mean, I think you can make an argument. It's probably the best of the Disney era, and I think this is probably the best Star Wars content probably since The Empire Strikes Back. What Tony Gilroy does such a great job, because yes, this takes place 5 years before the events of New Hope and Rogue One, where you follow Cassian Andor long before he was a rebel. He was more of just a guy trying to get by. He has his own motivations, of course, trying to find his sister, but he's just he's a simple man trying to get by in this Star Wars universe, if you will. But what this show does so well is exploring what it's like to live under fascism in a really intimate way. It's like, yes, we know the Empire is evil, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, the blown up planets, but this show really makes you hate the Empire. It gets into the minutia of their fascism, how repressive they are on a variety of different people throughout the galaxy. And it's really intimate. It's raw, and they explore that so thoroughly with just how repressive an occupation is a planet to the prison system, this commercialized prison system that has slave labor. It's great. It looks so good. One of my biggest criticisms, a lot of the Star Wars TV shows, is they look cheap. Sometimes they look good, and sometimes they look cheap. And the backgrounds and the CGI and also the green screen and the volume, which I'm not a big fan of. One of the things that I think makes Andor so cinematic and looks so good is just the fact that it is filmed on location. That means it's more expensive. There's no doubt about that. But man, the quality's right there. This show looks beautiful. Beautiful. And it's very much an extension of Rogue One. It looks even prettier than I think in Rogue One, to a great capacity. And you have other wonderful supporting performances throughout this series show. Obviously, with Stellan Skarsgård, who does such a good plays this character of Luthen, who is this rebel spy and this kind of ringleader. He gives a speech in this season that is just probably one of the best, just kind of moments of dialogue in the history of Star Wars, talking about sacrifice. I was so impressed with that. You have guest stars like Andy Serkis, who is in this series, and he gives an incredible monologue. He fucking nails it, chat. Obviously, Diego Luna, who returns as Cassian, does such a great job. The thing about Cassian was so interesting, and I'm because we see him. One of the great things about Rogue One was that we see a darker side of the rebellion, and it's yeah, we're the heroes and shit, but we gotta get some shit done. We gotta do the dirty fucking work. And he does that. Like, he'll shoot some guy in the back who's crying. He's like, "You're gonna blow my picture. I gotta kill you." Boom. It's like, it's okay. Bang, and he shoots him. And here, I love how this series opens up, where you have these two guys that accost him because they're mad at him for whatever reason. And we see a because they were in a brothel, which is so crazy. We see the first brothel in Star Wars, at least in live action, that is. And like, these two guys go after them, and one ends up getting accidentally killed. The other guy's like begging for his life and explaining the situation. It's like, "Hey, we'll just lie. And Andor, you just see how he's just figured this out. It's like, "No, I gotta get," just bang, shoots him in the face. I love that. That's his go-to move. He will not let you finish what you're saying before he'll shoot you. It's like, yeah, Han shot first. Andor will always shoot first, okay? Han Solo wishes he was Cassian Andor. That's the thing about Cassian Andor. He is Han Solo without any of the charm. He's not a great person. Even when people when he's walking up to people, everyone's like, "Ah, shit, it's Cassian." And I love that he's not that likable. He's kind of a piece of shit, in my opinion, Chad. And Fiona Shaw, who plays Cassian Andor's mother, his adoptive mother in this show. Speaking of monologue, she gives a speech that just makes you go, "Yeah, fuck the Empire," which originally was what she was supposed to say in this big speech, like after, certain things happen, and she's telling people, rise up, battle the Empire, don't settle for this. I think originally she was supposed to say, like, I think they had to dub it over, when she said, "Fuck the Empire." It's like, yeah! I wish they kept it in. Even Disney's like, "We're letting you get away with all this stuff," but I wish they kept that in. It's a great show. It really is. And you even have like these, again, they're very different types of villains than we often see in a lot of Star Wars content, especially in live action. Like, we have like what I consider to be like the Ben Shapiro of Star Wars, and Cyril Karn. That actor, Kyle Soller, does such a great job in that as this. He just wants to be the best Nazi, the best space Nazi he can. And the thing is, though, even though he's like, yes, he has the uniform, and he reads the handbook, 10 times, and he wants to do all these various things, he has like no charisma. He doesn't command the respect of his troops. He's not as competent as he thinks he is, but he's just a little fucking weasel. and like that's his thing. And then we have, oh God, what's that actress's name who plays give me a second here, chat. She is the Imperial inspector. Oh God damn, I'm forgetting her name. Oh damn, what was her name, chat? The one who was she was part of the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau. I'm forgetting her name, but she also does a great job. She just makes you, AKA boss bitch. She's boss bitch. She is just so despicable. She always has this. And the thing is, though, even though she's despicable and she's nasty and she's mean, she's extraordinarily competent. And in a way, Cyril Karn's like, that's why he's so attracted to her, because he's like, I want to be like her. But they're going to form like a really interesting power couple in the second season, chat. Let me look up who that character is. I want to give her the respect that she deserves. She's nasty, chat. Dedra Miro. Dedra Miro. That's her name. I was like, Dedra. Something starts with a D. Yeah. What a fantastic villain, chat. Like those. There's even like a scene in this series where you have this character named Bix, who's a friend of Cassian, an ex-girlfriend of Cassian's. And, she gets found out and she's being tortured, and it really shows you the lengths at which the Empire will do despicable things. Like, they nonchalantly talk about, we took over this planet and we exterminated the entire population. We gassed the entire population. But we had all these children left. We had all these children of all these people left. And, we were going to kill the kids, but we decided to record all their screams while they were dying, and we just kind of looped that over and over and over again, changed the pitch, and we used that for this auditory torture device. And it's being explained by this fucking doctor who is just so happy about it, and they use that to torture Bix with, and it's like, oh, you're just like, oh, and she does not look good. By the end of the show, it gets worse and worse and worse, but it just really shows you the intimate levels the Empire gets when it comes to just repressing people. It's so, you just hate them. You hate them. It's like, I know they're evil and they blow up planets, but it was those moments that make them so despicable. So it's a great show. It's a very different type of Star Wars show, Chad. This is not, this is not the Star Wars that I think we've often seen a lot of the movies. It's grittier, it's nastier, it's more mature. This is a Star Wars show for people that like to watch, Succession or Game of Thrones, in my opinion. It's of that quality. And speaking of Game of Thrones, chat, my number 3 best TV show of 2022 is House of the Dragon. I had a lot of misgivings going into the show, chat, I'll admit. I was a Game of Thrones fan. I think all of us were a pretty big Game of Thrones fan, certainly for the first 6 seasons, maybe a little few ups and downs, But overall, that first 6 seasons of television was so good, right? But then those last 2 seasons, especially of season 8, I feel like they really dropped the ball with it. They made a lot of mistakes, and you can go into a variety of reasons what those mistakes were. But in any case, House of the Dragon, which is a prequel, takes place about 170, 180 so years before the events of Game of Thrones. We focus on the beginning of the Targaryen Civil War, also known as the Dance of Dragons, where we follow Viserys Targaryen, who he's trying to produce a male heir, ends up declaring that his daughter, Rhaenyra Targaryen, will be his heir, and she'll be the future queen of the Seven Kingdoms. But other people don't like that, and that causes all sorts of political strife and backstabbing and scheming, chat. And it gets back to the aspects that made Game of Thrones so interesting to watch, which was its characters. Yes, it has battles, it has fantasy elements, it has dragons, chat, but what works about House of the Dragon so well at the end of the day is its characters, are its relationship, its ever-changing relationships, and the performances of the actors and what they're given to say. That's what works about this show. So everyone from Paddy Considine to Matt Smith to Olivia Cook, they all do such a great job in this show. There are just some moments where I'm just like, God damn. And that's the thing, like, looking back on the series, like, yeah, they have some action scenes, but for most of it, it's just people talking to each other. It's people talking to each other in cool looking outfits. But I loved it for that, because over time it's just building. And it's because between like these two families, the Targaryens and the Hightowers and different subsections of the Targaryen family, and it's just building the tension and the anxiety, and it's a powder keg ready to explode at any given moment, and eventually it does, due to a number of different things, a number of choices characters make, and I loved it. I loved it for that. Like, you never know. Like, at the end of every episode, I was like, oh God, what's it? Like, anytime like Matt Smith's character walked into the room, it's like, what is this fucking guy gonna do? What's he gonna say? Always lean in is like, you're gonna say something that's gonna set a lot of people off. But it's great. And the only thing that's frustrating is what's going, season 2 is 2 years away, 2024. It won't be in 2023, which is like, it's so frustrating. It has this like huge, like, holy shit moment, which the powder keg burst. And now everything's just going to fall apart. But there are so many great characters in this series, shit. I mean, I could do a list of my favorite characters in this show, and there's still, even before I finish that list, there'll be other ones. I'm like, ooh, but this character's really good, she's really good, and he's really good. Wonderful show. Highly recommend. If you were burned, listen, I get it. I was burned of Game of Thrones. A lot of people burned of Game of Thrones. I would say, hey, give this a chance, because this is giving you the Game of Thrones you like so much. They do a really good job, and I'm very excited for the future of this series. But moving on, Chet, to my top 2, and starting with number 2, and that is the final season of Better Call Saul. I think for a lot of people, when they first heard that they were going to be doing a prequel sequel series to Breaking Bad, everyone like, okay, interesting. Who are you going to focus on? Saul Goodman. Everyone like, really? The comic relief character played by Bob Odenkirk. Not to say he didn't have some great moments in the show, but he was mostly there for comic relief. Even I had my misgivings. But by the time I saw the first season, I was like, wow, this is really good. I was very impressed with it. And I feel like a lot of people had misconceptions that this was going to be a comedy show. Yeah, that was just going to be, oh, it's going to be the wacky cases of Saul Goodman. How is he going to get out of trouble this week? How is he going to get this person off? And it's not that. This is a show that is as good, and I don't know, this might be controversial, if not better than Breaking Bad. This is a Breaking Bad. If it's Better Call Saul, to me, has like more confidence in itself. Maybe Breaking Bad even did. Not to say that Breaking Bad wasn't a great show. It was. But Better Call Saul, to me, like doesn't have like a weak moment. It doesn't have a weak season. It keeps building every subsequent season after the other. Bob Odenkirk gives such a great performance where we find out Saul Goodman is this guy named Jimmy McGill who has a ridiculous and spotted past, to say the least, trying to succeed in his own law practice, dealing with the dysfunction with his brother and his lover, and then later girlfriend, and then wife, Kim Wexler, but then also, chat, building to him being, Saul Goodman, the lawyer of, infamous meth kingpin, Walter White Heisenberg, and also exploring a lot of the history of Mike Ehrmantraut, played by Jonathan Banks, and Gus Fring, played by Giancarlo Esposito, and introducing new characters like Lalo Salamanca, played by Tony Dalton, and Nacho, played by Michael Mondo. This is a fantastic show, and the ending is perfect. Like when you look at the ending, so like the main cast members of each protagonist of the Breaking Bad universe, it all kind of makes sense. And the ending that they give Saul Goodman is perfect. And I thought it was a really brave choice because yes, even though this is a prequel show and it leads up to pretty much we're in the events of Breaking Bad, they do a lot of stuff that takes place after the events of Breaking Bad with Jimmy McGill of Saul Goodman, and it's all in black and white. And I love that because it really shows just how fucking miserable his life has gotten because of the choices that he's made. It's like, yeah, we will care for Jimmy. We will feel sorry for him. We'll empathize for him. He's like, he's not as bad. But I like that they show it's like, but he's done all these horrible things. And you realize like over time, it's like, nah, he is a bad person. and I like that. They don't shy away from that. And they just give you more context for a lot of the characters that we see in Breaking Bad. Like Jonathan Banks does such an amazing job as Mike. He really does. And then giving us the character of Kim Wexler, played by, oh God, her name, but the actress plays Kim Wexler, something Seahorn. She does such a fantastic job. It is a great swan song to Vince Gilligan's Breaking Bad universe. I mean, Breaking Bad, El Camino, which wrapped up Jesse Pinkman's story, and obviously with Better Call Saul, it's like, wow, this is like one of the best TV universes of all time, if not the best TV universe of all time, through multiple shows. It's Rhea Seehorn, thank you, Rhea Seehorn. She's amazing in this series. We see what happens to her. All these characters, we find out what happens, Chad. It's great. Highly recommended. And it would have been my number one, Chad, with the exception. The only thing is I like, but wait, to me, the best TV show of 2022, the show where I'm like, I don't think this has any flaws. I can't think of a single flaw that this series has, or the season. It is perfect. And that is season 3 of Barry, chat. This show is incredible. Like what Bill Hader and his co-creator Alec Berg have done, to me, is perfect. This dark comedic crime drama where he followed this guy played by Bill Hader, who is this ex-Marine, and he falls into being a hitman, an assassin for hire, with his handler Stephen Root controlling him. Does this job in Los Angeles, but then his target is this guy who is this kind of wannabe actor, and he follows this guy, tracks him, and he, seeing him perform at this acting school, which is being run by Henry Winker's character of Gene Cousineau, he just kind of falls in love with it, and he wants to pursue acting while also trying to maintain his life as a hitman as well. It is perfect. It is so good. And this most recent season where like everything is falling apart, his depression is at an all-time high, the people around him despise him, and he still wants to maintain his various relationships with them. You know, he wants to be loved, he wants the adulation, but he's just so selfish and narcissistic and and horrible that he doesn't want to face his own consequences. And I mean, the fact that you have a character played by Anthony Carrigan, NoHo Hank, who is kind of the leader of the Chechen mob, who has done horrible things. But when you make me feel more sorry for that character and what he's going through, like I empathize more with him than I do with like Barry after, you know, a period of time. That's pretty incredible. This, and just the writing, the acting, there's a sequence where they use just sound, because this is like a relatively low budget show, but there's a sequence, I don't want to say what it is, but you have this character, NoHo Hank, leader of the Chechen mob, who's in prison by the Bolivians, and he's in a cell, and there's another cell next to him but it's like a cement wall, but you hear something going on in there, and you never see what's behind that wall, you just hear it, and it's like, that is fucking brilliant. The tension is incredibly well crafted. It's violent. It has a great ending. Like, the thing is about this show, like, they're going to do one more season. They said one more season is the 4th season, but they could have ended it here, and it could have been a perfect ending too. It'd been like, yep, this played out how it was always going to play out. But yeah, I love this show. Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3. And what's so good about this series too, Chad, is like it's a quick watch. These episodes are only about 30 minutes long. I think there's like 8 episodes per season. You can easily binge watch these, and each one ends with like, holy shit, what's gonna happen next? Just leave you anticipating. Fantastic, well-crafted cliffhangers at the end of each episode. And at this one, I mean, Season 3 acts as another huge cliffhanger, but it could also be like, well, that's how it's gonna be. That's how it wrapped up. But hey, we're getting to Season 4. But Barry Season 3, to me, Chad, is the best TV show of 2022. What about you guys? What are your top 10 TV shows of 2022? What are some of your honorable mentions? Let me know.